What is up, YouTube? JankyYGO here. My name is Michael, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing the Power 9 and what I think the Yu-Gi-Oh equivalents uh, in Yu-Gi-Oh. So, what is the Power 9? Well, the Power 9 are a series of 9 magic cards that came out back in 1993 and 94-ish area, uh, in which they were considered the 9 individually most powerful cards. And they still are widely considered that. There is some debate on one of these cards, but we're not going to really get into that. And I'll briefly explain what makes each of these cards powerful, and then I'm going to explain my choices. So, uh, time lock taking an extra turn. It has a very low cost. In Magic, there is there's something called mana. There's a resource. You have to play lands, and you have to get mana in order to play your cards. So, take an extra turn for only 2 mana, and it's one of the most powerful effects in the game, as Power Crept has shown us in Magic, because they used to be allowed to print 5 or higher mana versions, and it wouldn't see play. But nowadays, because the card pool got so much better over time, outside of certain things, it 2 mana would be too much. Even to the point where we hit the point in Magic where even like 8 mana, which is usually a lot of mana, is fine. Ancestral Recall, it draws 3 cards. And don't have to explain to Yu-Gi-Oh players why drawing 3 for virtually nothing, for no investment, is a good thing, or is a why it's good. Time Twister, there's a lot of words on it, and it's worded badly, but pretty much it says each player shuffles their hand, graveyard, back into the deck, draw 7. That's pretty much the gist of it. And then the mocks here, they all do the same thing for one of their respective mana. They allow you for free to add mana to your mana pool every single turn. And Black Lotus is another way. So those 6 cards, the reason they're on here is that they accelerate the game so much for you that your opponent will have a hard time catching up if they don't have a similar hand. So that is the Power 9. That's why they are the Power 9. I'm going to explain my choices because I see other people do Power 9 lists and stuff like that, what they think the Power 9 of Yu-Gi-Oh is. And I disagree with almost all of them because I don't think that they really quite get what makes a Power 9 and everything. So let's just jump into the first card, the Liquid Duo. The Liquid Duo is, I think, one of the best contenders for this. And there's kind of a direct comparison in Magic. So in Magic the Gathering, uh, there's this called Hymn to Torak, right? So it costs 2 mana. Your opponent discards 2 cards at random. The Liquid Duo does something similar. The reason why Magic can get away with discarding is because Magic has these things called resources. And Hymn to Torak is good in that, but discarding is slightly worse in Magic than it is in Yu-Gi-Oh, because not only do they have these resources and stuff like that, it makes it easier to build back up slowly because it's a slower game, but also because um, they have more cards at hand. The Liquid Duo, if you were to rip 2 cards out of your opponent's hand, sometimes that's enough to win. As we've seen in the past, there's hand loops and stuff where taking 2 to 3 cards out of people's hands, not only does it feel bad and lead to a lot of feel bad moments, there aren't a lot of cards and there's not like hand traps and stuff to stop this card. So it can just rip these out. And because if this is the first card you activate, there is a chance that you rip out your opponent's hand traps that would have otherwise stopped you. So I think that this card, along with the Forceful Sentry, should be both Power 9s. Because the Forceful Sentry lets you look at their hand and shuffle one back in, gets rid of the card, you don't need it, and everything like that. This is a little bit less good than it would be in the past, because most archetypes and stuff search their decks so much that this is slightly less good. However, I still think this is more powerful because, unlike the Liquid Duo, which I didn't bring up, this will never give them graveyard effects. The Liquid Duo could give them graveyard effects, it just depends. because it's a discard at random. But speaking of discard and hand information, which this card allows you to get, Confiscation. So these cards, I think these three cards kind of encapsulate the Mox idea, where three cards are kind of the same, or a good chunk of the cards are pretty much the same type of card, but and everything. So it gets that feel. But on top of that, uh, this and the Forceful Sentry give you information on your opponent's hand. If you have information and stuff like that, and you have perfect knowledge about what your opponent has, then you know what to play around. You know what to interact with, you know how to stop them and slow them down and stuff like that. Especially like in conjunction with the other cards. I think that these are very powerful, and I think that they shouldn't be overlooked. I see a lot of lists that'll have one of these, and their idea is to have all of them grouped in a bunch, but I think that that kind of goes against the idea of what the Power 9 is. They're supposed to be 9 individually powerful cards, not grouped up. Even, but that's just my opinion. Uh, and next up, we have the Painful Choice. Painful Choice is arguably the most broken spell card ever conceived in the history of this game, because this is a card that got better as time went on. As you can see, it's kind of like 4 Foolish Burials and any 1 card from your deck to your hand. Foolish Burial is a card that is already limited because it allows certain cards to get certain effects and sets you up to keep going and do your crazy combos. This card lets you do that 4 times. For any card, it can be spells, traps, or monsters. Back in the day, you would pick for your 5 value spell or trap cards, and that would be the choice and everything like that to choose. And you'd always make your opponent give you these difficult. You'd always give your opponent a painful choice, as the card says, because you're getting value no matter what. I think in modern day game, we would send 5 monsters that we want to the graveyard, or we select 5 monsters we want in the graveyards, or don't mind in our hand. So what this allows us to do is we get those 4 graveyard relevant cards, and then the rest, and then 1 card to our hand, and that makes a very painful choice for the opponent. And it makes it so that, setting up the graveyard is easier. And yeah, I mean, sure, you can make the argument, well, there's cards that, we have cards that send multiple cards to the graveyard. And you're right, but the ones that do that aren't in like super powerful archetypes. If we were to put this in tier limit, for example, we could select all the tier names and like one of their trap, and then like their continuous trap card. Doesn't matter what you give me, I get to get all my tier effects. See, when I put it to you like that way in a powerful deck such as tier limit, it really makes you think. Pedigree. Pedigree is a very iconic Yu-Gi-Oh card, and allowed in the anime. A lot of times, it was a very hype moment to get and turnaround point for the opponent, or for the not the opponent, for the player or the protagonist to kind of come back from a hard to win situation. In Yu-Gi-Oh, draw twos are super powerful, more so than any other card game I've ever played, because Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have a card resource system, and so a free draw 2 is way too good. We've seen in the past that a Yu-Gi-Oh player, if the downside is worth it or not really as big of a downside as maybe Konami thought, we'll play it. Second Light, I'm pretty sure, for example, Second Light is a card that they probably didn't expect, R&D didn't expect people to play too much, but we did. We played it so much that it had to get hit. It had to get limited or banned. I don't remember which one it is. But it had to get hit, which made it not worth playing. Speaking of draw spells, Graceful Charity. This card, in my opinion, is arguably better than Pot of Greed. Not only does it let you see 3 cards deeper into your deck, but that discarding 2 cards is relevant, because you're breaking even. You're not actually losing card advantage. Sure, you're not going +1, but you are breaking even. And you're discarding 2 cards, and those 2 cards can be cards that you want to discard and set up in the graveyard, or 2 cards you don't need. The reason why this effect is good as opposed to Delinquent Duo is Delinquent Duo does it before you really have a chance to set up or respond and stuff like that, and you discard at random. If they hit your hand traps or they hit your relevant cards to stop them before they do their combo, uh, you're not gonna be able to, you're not gonna be able to play through. It's gonna lead to a lot of feel bads and stuff like that. And I think that overall, I think Graceful Charity is far and away more powerful than Pedigree because once again, you see farther in your deck, you set up your graveyard effects. Now, onto Soul Charge. Soul Charge, I think, is it's the newest card on this list, but I still think it deserves to be mentioned as a Power 9. And my reasoning for this is it makes going first even way better than it needs to. Sometimes you top deck Soul Charge, even go in second, and then you break their board, your opponent's board, after you play through a bunch of stuff. Soul Charge your stuff back, and then you start going off from there. Overall, I think that this card leads to too swingy of games, and I think that by doing so, it makes the card so powerful that and all that, and kind of um it's like the perfect extension tool because I could have put Monster Reborn or Premature Burial, which are Premature Burial is much more abusable than Reborn. I think that Soul Charge is that on like kicked up to 11. I can't imagine that like Soul Charge is worse. I mean, you can't conduct your battle phase, sure, but you don't need to. When you activate Soul Charge, you don't need to conduct your battle phase. You just can play it, and yeah, I think that this card is way too powerful. And just like the next card, which kind of counters this one, and is the first trap card on the list, Royal Oppression. I think that this card is the quintessential Power 9 card in terms of traps. I think this is what it means to be a broken, powerful trap that makes it so that the game feels one-sided. Because ultimately, that's what the Power 9 did. Imagine this, right? If you're not convinced why this card is good, and I want to imagine this, your opponent goes first. They play through your hand traps, and they set up this big board and have enough negates to stop you, or have a decent amount of negates to stop you, but you could still special summon a bunch of cards. Flip up Royal Oppression. What are they going to do? Sure, it's symmetrical. Only one person needs Royal Oppression flipped up, and then both players can pay the 800 game and negate whatever opponent special summons. But you've already set up your board, so that doesn't matter. Sure, you could be playing board breakers and stuff like that, like Dark Ruler No More. But if you were to, but I think the difference is you could break the board. There are ways. It just be very, very hard to, and there are ways you could break almost any board. But I don't think that this card is a very fun or fair card, and I think that it deserves a spot on the Power 9 list, even in casual formats, because every deck special summons nowadays, even the super bad decks, even the ones that are like tier like 500, like bad, they special summon. There are thousands of archetypes, and every single one of them special summons at least once. And negating that is just too powerful. But you know what's some arguably better than negating? Vandy's Emptiness. Now, I chose Vandy's Emptiness because it's like another Royal Oppression, and because of its impact on the game. I think that this card is far and away too strong most of the time for similar reasons to Royal Oppression. I think that this card warped an entire format, like several entire formats actually. Once people started hitting it and playing 3 copies in every deck, because that did happen, and it was rough, and especially at that time when we had no good spell or trap removal outside of 3 MSTs, or Mystical Space Typhoon for those that don't know the acronym. Uh, Here's some honorable mentions and ones that almost made the list, though. Is Imperial Order almost made the list because you could argue that it's better than Vanities if you flip up Vanities and Royal Oppression together. Or not Vanities, Royal Oppression and Imperial Order together. So that was an honorable mention. If we went by the context of historically, before Vanities or Soul Charge and before Royal Oppression really got good, I would say probably I'd probably still put Imperial Order. I'd put Imperial Order and then Raigeki and Harpy's Feather Duster on the list instead. But I think that historically wise, those were good. I did take erratas into account for this list, because if not, I would have considered original Chaos Emperor Dragon, as that was arguably at one point the strongest card ever printed for a very long time. But that's just my opinion. I think that this list of the Power 9 is overall pretty good. There might be some changes that you could make, and arguments and stuff like that. Another honorable mention, because I didn't put any monsters on this list, is Max C. I felt like putting monsters on this list kind of went away from it. I like the idea of what the Power 9 actually is. So the Power 9, I see a lot because I've seen people put like archetype specific cards into their Power 9 and stuff like that, but that's not what the Power 9 really is. You need good, powerful, generic cards, and I think I nailed that in my opinion. But you can let me know in the comment section down below if it is your birthday today. Happy birthday! And if you want to send me any cool deck profiles or replays, you know what? Go ahead and do so. It might be a while before I check them out, but I'd still like to see them. If you enjoy this kind of content, please remember to slap the like button and hit the subscribe. It helps a lot. And of course, and as always, have a wonderful day.